Yeah, turn it up. Vampus, and I gotta send out a couple text messages.
Still doing work behind the scenes here.
Round, that's from gluten.
Ooh.
See, my face is round, that's from gluten.
You gotta warn me first. Here.
Probably a Jezebel spirit.
Don't drink this all at one time. Let's piss off a few Pharisees.
Pharisees and Sadducees. I don't listen to you anymore. You just drink and smoke cigars. I don't even listen to you.
Did you ever?
Within reason. I listen within reason.
That is extra smoky.
You're on camera now. Welcome to the Liberty Without Compromise live stream broadcast. We are the only live, local, liberty-minded program right here in Kootenai County. Despite whoever it is that steals our intro and says they are what they are, we are what we are, and we were here first. We're here to expose the political power players, politicians, social influencers, power-playing pastors. I mean, they're going to keep coming up. Just because there's a little breather in there doesn't mean that all went away.
They say we're all moved on. No, we didn't.
Nobody moved on.
We're moving.
Nobody moved on. Nah. Some of these things just take time. You know, you got 40 years head start on us. Some of these things are going to take time.
Yeah.
We're your hosts, Dan and Dawna Wilson. I'm here to screen your questions and comments. You can get involved right there in the comment section on whichever platform you're joining. You could also text or leave a voicemail. We love the voicemails. We can even put you on the air through your voicemail. You know, if it's worthy. That number is 208-366-4671. The voicemail or texting system at that number works really well if you want a little more anonymity. You don't want your name up on the screen. Understandable. You can call 208-366-4671. Be sure to share this feed to your page or profile as you're watching live with us here tonight. And for those of you listening back on our podcast, be sure to catch us live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. so you can join in on the discussion. A reminder that opinions are expressed are ours only, not necessarily that of our advertisers, affiliates, sponsors, or guests. Terry Martinez says, let's go. Let's go. We welcome you, Terry and Suzanne and Tyler and James, to the Liberty Without Compromise broadcast. I'm Dawna Wilson, like I said, alongside Dan. And tonight we're getting into a series of stories that, taken together, paint a much bigger picture about leadership, accountability, and influence here in Kootenai County. We're starting with serious concerns out of the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office after a power outage exposed what appears to be a critical failure in preparedness, a backup generator that didn't perform, systems going down, and questions now. Yes, we're talking about this again. It's not on repeat. There's more to it. Questions now about whether this equipment was being routinely tested or it was maybe just we assumed it was going to work, and why that's a problem. We're also going to take a closer look at ongoing opposition to the Mitchell Event Center, new developments surrounding John Padula. I hope somebody told him that we were going to be talking about him tonight, because I put that out there.
He's probably in a prayer meeting.
Somebody tell John Padula.
Probably in a prayer meeting and profiteering meeting.
Probably. And questions about compliance and associations, and why, get this, the Fraternal Order of Police is now backing John Padula, raising new questions about priorities and alignment, because it wasn't all that long ago that the Fraternal Order of Police was like, absolutely not. No, thank you, John Padula.
They're political attention whores, every last one of them.
Yeah. Then we're going to get into what's becoming one of the most concerning threads, support from Kootenai County Prosecutor Stan Mortensen for a repeat offender, and what some are calling a lack of urgency or accountability in the Parker case. You ever heard of Parker Toyota? We'll also share what deputies have told Dan directly about that arrest, information you're not going to hear anywhere else. And then tonight we're adding another layer to this conversation. This is something brand new. The man who shot Pastor Tim Remington multiple times a decade ago has now been released early. I think he got 25 years and out in 10. Released early from prison and is back in our community. What's raising eyebrows isn't just the release, but it is the response. Statements that point toward not just forgiveness, but a desire to reconnect, even minister together, is what Pastor Tim Remington says. And that opens up a broader conversation about influence, belief, and the role that religion can play, not just in healing, but potentially in shaping perception and control. We're going to be asking difficult questions tonight, asking you to get involved. And the question is, are there deeper connections here that the public never fully understood? And how should the community be processing this now? As always, we want to hear from you. Continue to drop your questions and comments as we're here live. We're going to be engaging with you throughout the show. And now it's time to get started. Here's your host, Dan Wilson.
Good evening, everyone. Episode 64 in this towards the end of the month. March 2026. Can't believe it's already here. So much going on at a global level, a national level, state level, and right here. And of course, we talk primarily about right here. Now, a couple things that we are working on that we hope to have to you next week. Deputy Ballman from Kootenai County Sheriff's Office is up for the Medal of Honor Award for his heroics during the Canfield shooting. We're going to bring to you video from his body-worn camera that we will be playing at least the first 20 minutes of it next week so that you can see firsthand what was going on as the events unrolled. I think that it will be eye-opening for many of you. The other thing that we are working on is we're working on political candidates running right here in Kootenai County, and we are ironing up a few loose ends. But a couple weeks ago, we said that we were going to release the part 2 of the Show Your Proof.
Yeah.
And we were going to air it this last weekend. That didn't happen.
What the heck happened?
Technical problems. So the file was corrupted, and we now get to go back and re-record it. So, and I said, heck with it. I had too many cigars and whiskey to drink over the weekend. We did not get to it.
It'll be better. It'll be even more poignant.
Practice run?
Yeah.
So if you want to see that this weekend, let us know. We'll try to hurry up and get it out. Not too fast, but we will get it out because the second part of the story, the Empire Strikes Back, so to speak, of episodes has to be seen. You need to see Paul Truett when he was not a Bob Norris fan before he became a Bob Norris fan, but then was sentenced to community service for his battery and assault on those people at the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee Town Hall back in February of 2025. Now, I follow on X. One of my absolute favorite people on X is Marcus Notrilius. I don't know who Marcus Notrilius is, but they appear to have a vast knowledge either of the law and or government liability. And I've enjoyed watching as the posts have been rolling in, stating that Bob Norris and the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee should be bracing themselves for the impending federal civil rights lawsuit. If you get a chance, go to X and look up Marcus Notrilius, see what he has to say on Kootenai County politics. And See if you might learn something. I learned something from Marcus all of the time. Again, the assumption is it is a dude based on the name. Could be a female, but whatever it is enlightening. There is so much going on here. It's hard for us to be able to plan each week, one show per week, with as much as is unraveling. You guys already watch everything on a national level. We don't need to constantly regurgitate what mostly is filling up your feeds. But you need to be paying attention right here locally in Kootenai County. Now, a couple weeks ago, we were talking about Tim Remington and the ranch. And once you know, as we were discussing his Good Samaritan program, the rehabilitation that he works with the courts in order to get people deferred sentences by coming to his recovery group, 90 days at these remote properties in Kootenai County where they have intense recovery, no narcotics, nothing to get them off of their substance abuse, but just the word of God and counseling and hard work. And we've talked about the undercover recording that took place where Remington admitted to knowing that there was a registered sex offender that was working at the church when this registered sex offender and his wife, who had both committed a crime against a minor earlier, had been sentenced and were attending and working at the altar church. Use that opportunity to, again, sexually assault an 11-year-old girl. And that dude was sentenced again recently. Darren, can't think of his last name right now. It'll come to me. But we talked about some of the dirty dealings with the altar church. And I want to remind you that Tim Remington is the lead pastor there. Now, in 2016, an alleged deranged man came up and shot Tim in the back, I think 6 times with a .45. And this week, this lead story came out. Slide number 1.
Darren Maynard.
Thank you.
We had one of our listeners put that name up there, so we appreciate that, Tyler. Thank you.
Hit some of the highlights from this Coeur d'Alene Press article from the 18th of March, so just last week. Pastor Tim Remington, his shooter was released. He sat in his office at the altar church on Tuesday, reflected on the release from prison that morning of the man who shot him 6 times 10 years ago. The same man is set to live at a transitional home in Post Falls. I'm not fearful, Remington said. Rather, he is hopeful. I want to get him saved, Remington said. It would really be cool to minister with him. Kyle Odom, 40, pleaded guilty in 2017 to charges of aggravated battery and a firearm enhancement, both felonies. Odom received a 25-year prison sentence for the shooting in accordance with a plea deal that stipulated he served no more than that with parole eligibility after 10 years and credit for more than 600 days he had already served before receiving his sentence in November 2017. Odom said he was remorseful for his actions and explained the delusions that prompted him to shoot Remington, which he believed were real. I want you guys to listen to this. Open up your minds. Pay attention. At the sentencing hearing, Odom said he was flying back to Idaho from Texas when a man on the plane told him to buy a cell phone and wait for a call. Odom said Remington called him, setting off a series of events that seemed supernatural to him and culminated in the shooting. That's pretty odd, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Odom, then 32 years old and a former Marine combat veteran, shot Remington in the church parking lot of the 900 block of East Betts Avenue, emptying a 12-round magazine before fleeing on March 6, 2016. Remington was shot through the right side, through his back, and in his right hand with a .45 caliber handgun. Investigators later determined that the shooting was meticulously planned. After the shooting, Odom traveled to Washington, D.C., where the security officers arrested him after he threw documents and flash drives over a fence into the White House lawn. So he shoots Remington, has the wherewithal to get on a plane, fly cross country, go to the White House, and then throw flash drives over the fence. Okay, pay attention again. These are very interesting statements by the convicted. At that time, Odom thought he was tormented by hypersexual, mind-controlling Martians, according to a 30-page manifesto he sent to Idaho news outlets. Odom has a documented history of severe mental illness and previously claimed Pastor Remington was a Martian from an ancient civilization and that he had been instructed to kill him, said a Coeur d'Alene Police Department officer awareness bulletin obtained by the press. Odom is a former U.S. Marine and firearms training. Now it goes on to say on page 3, Remington was upset that he apparently claims that he didn't know that Odom was going to be released. I should have been there. They should have not released him without me being present to give my opinion. That's the only thing that bothers me. I'm not happy with the system, but as far as him, I still want to see him saved. He said he asked to see Odom before his release. Odom, however, did not want to see him. According to the Commission of Pardons and Parole, notifications were sent to Remington and the prosecuting attorney's office informing them of the parole hearing date and their ability to testify at the hearing or submit a written statement if they chose to do so. So Remington's claiming, I didn't know anything about this. I would have been there. And then by protocol, the state says we have to send out notice to not only the victim, but also to the local prosecutor. Kootenai County Prosecuting Attorney Stan Morrison said Tuesday that his office was in contact with Remington after receiving notice from the Parole Commission. Idaho law requires the Commission of Pardons and Parole to consider incarcerated individuals parole when they are within 6 months of completing the fixed part of their sentences. Odom's parole date was Tuesday, so the commission considered him for parole and ultimately granted it at the end of September 2025. During the hearing, Odom told commissioners that he felt regret for harming an innocent person and believed he was no longer a threat to society. Asked what he would have told the parole board, Remington said he would have done his best to make sure he gets the help he needs when he gets out. That would have been my whole thing. I want to be part of that help. Last page, number 4. Upon release, Odom will reside in transitional housing in Post Falls, according to the bulletin. He will wear an ankle monitor and is only authorized to reside at the specific address as a condition of his release. Extra patrols have been requested at the altar church and at a residential address in Coeur d'Alene, according to the police bulletin. Remington said the male called the church several times recently and left the same message each time. The demonic voices that manipulated Odom were doing the same to him. Interesting.
What male called the church several times?
Some random male.
A random.
Random male.
Same. Okay. And then they're going to do extra patrol. I wonder for how long.
Well, until they feel safe. Those resources
Couple
allow.
of weeks, couple of Sundays.
I don't know. It's very odd to me. Again, these are just conversation pieces.
Yep.
What was he talking about earlier? That he was on a plane. A dude told him to buy a phone. He picks up the phone.
Yeah.
And it rings on the other end is Tim Remington.
Yeah. He just make all that up.
It's weird. I don't know.
We had a viewer that chimed in actually before you read the article that this is just a viewer's comment that Tim is Odom's, and he corrected the word Odom. He typed it wrong there in the first place. He came back and corrected, but Tim is Odin's handler. Now, actually, Willie joining us there on YouTube visited him in prison. Was that, let us know, clarify that. Did you visit him in prison, or are you saying that Remington visited him in prison? So you can clarify that one. But yeah, it seems that some of our viewers have opinions about what exactly it was that happened at that time and Odom's potential connection to Remington or the altar church, or maybe some of the other people involved in the ranch program there. Speculation on my part. But it does seem there's maybe more to the story, that he wasn't just a random crazy guy.
Well, and then the hypersexual
Martian.
Yeah. And I mean, and when you hear the stories that we have heard,
Yes.
about what others have stated about what goes on at the altar church,
Yes.
you start wondering, well, how crazy is all of this? How crazy was it? Look, anytime you whack somebody or attempt to whack them, you're a criminal. That ain't good.
Correct.
But I just find it fascinating. This is an article that came up that I wasn't expecting. And I think that comments and statements by people are very fascinating and should be,
yeah.
They shouldn't just be glazed over. Is that the new word the kids are using, glazed?
Not like that.
Oh,
though,
not like that?
Babe.
Really? Well, it sounded cool. They're just glazed over.
You're using it in the original
term?
sense that us old people use it. It seems Willie, joining us over on YouTube, possibly has some insider knowledge. He seems to know something a little bit about it. So I'll leave it to you guys to go over, follow our YouTube channel at the Idaho Sheriff. We broadcast, the live stream goes to YouTube. It's a great place to watch full resolution video there up on your smart TV. But I mean, you can engage with Willie or try to get in touch with him if you want more info. Because I mean, if he seems to know some stuff.
And we're definitely not done with the altar story. In fact, one of the things that is concerning me, and we're going to talk about this a little more, is how many government officials now, local county government officials, are dominating from certain churches. So you have them from Immaculate Conception out in Post Falls, possibly the Altar Church right here in Coeur d'Alene. And it's something that we're not going to talk about tonight, but I would like to have a better discussion with many of our listeners to see what are their views. How do you guys view certain churches in the area producing the majority, and that's not even really fair to say majority, but a disproportionate amount of representatives from their congregation?
Yeah.
And what are the problems with that, potential pitfalls? What are the pluses, but what are the pitfalls? Okay, so a couple weeks ago, the Kootenai County, during the windstorm, 2 weeks ago, we had a devastating windstorm right here in Kootenai County. As you know, last week, I was bringing up the fact that the Kootenai County jail had lost power and the backup emergency generator failed to fire. The jail was without power for 8 to 12 hours. Still have not got the final answer as to how long, but it was off for a very long time. We talked about some of the dangers, the life safety issues, critical mission that the generator should have been on for its ability to fire up, to not only keep lights on and air handlers, but also for the jail doors and other access areas to remain secure and not operable by mechanical key. So we put in our records request and we asked how often were they maintaining this generator and doing load function test and multiple different tests that you would know that industry standard requires for a building of that size, a generator of that size, for an operation like the jail. And our records request basically came back as a pretty fat 0. We did get one inspection. It was done by a third party. Caterpillar came out and did an annual inspection, and it did pass the annual inspection. But you guys know that these things have to be tested weekly. They have to be tested weekly. They have to be tested monthly, quarterly. So
you said it passed an annual. Do you know when?
August.
What?
August of 25.
Okay.
So that's more than 6-7 months ago. But that does not excuse my follow-up with Kootenai County. So I only got that one third-party vendor inspection, annual inspection that they got. And I said, well, where is your monthly inspections? The person's responsible. When have they been done? They can't produce any. Therefore, it is safe to assume that Bob Norris, and remember, he was handpicked specifically for his management of emergency events, man-made and natural.
Yeah, it reminds me too of the scripture that says, or maybe it's not a scripture, maybe it's something my mom said, but being faithful in little, before knowing that much will eventually be required of you, but it's important to be faithful in little, because some people pass this off, this generator failure, as what's the big deal? Stuff happens. Mm-hmm. And it just, my mind immediately went to, look, if you can't pass the test.
Anybody that says that's a fool, because you have, and if you're in that camp, you are a fool, and I'll call you a fool to your face, because this is similar to a hospital. You have 500, give or take, inmates. That is your job as the jailer to make certain that every individual is properly protected against themselves, against the environment, against other inmates. That is your job. And to allow a catastrophic failure like this is completely unacceptable on any level. For some of our customers who are in the medical field that run similar large generators, they have weekly tests. They cannot have any failure at their various facilities. And in the same way, you have to have a backup generator. And not only, again, for lighting. I mean, do you think that it's important to have lit up areas inside a jail? Or are you just like, oh, who cares for 8 hours? Who the hell cares? Well, what happens when plumbing doesn't work? If it's hooked up to sumps? Or what happens when heating and air conditioning doesn't work? And when you can't actually push a button in a control room to open up and close doors, or your cameras don't work? Anybody that blows this off as not being a big deal, you're a fool. I'm going to tell you to your face right now, you are a fool. It's completely unacceptable. The Kootenai County Sheriff's Office and Bob Norris, as the head who should have extreme ownership, is an embarrassment for a guy that brags about being handpicked out of all these hundreds of law enforcement professionals down in Los Angeles to be trained in order to prepare for emergency events. And he can't even assign a captain or a lieutenant to ensure that the jail backup generator is fully functioning. I think that Bob, again, should quit having all of his donut events and his pizza events and walking around with his drop leg holster trying to be a gunslinger and get back to managing his damn jail. I mean, he's pushing right now for a new $9 million 911 facility.
Oh.
He's $2.5 million over budget on his jail overtime. The guy is managing his agency extremely poorly.
Yeah, I want to point people to our episode from last week when Dan mentions the $2 million overage on overtime, because the argument amongst a lot of people and the defense, even from many who are in the jail or have recently retired, when they were defending that overtime situation, Dan was never making an argument for that the deputies that received overtime did not, they earned it ethically. He was never making an argument that they were not earning it ethically, but the issue more being, it's the overarching issue that Bob Norris has had years now, and he's in his second term, to fix the understaffing issue at the jail, or the staffing issue, and he has not done that. So the overtime might be a fine short-term solution, but in the long run, it's not.
It's not.
And there's more on that in the episode from last week, available on our YouTube channel at the Idaho Sheriff. And then continue to get involved in the comment section here as you're watching us live. A whole bunch of you have joined us since the top of the hour. We're loving to see your comments. I wanted to put this one from Guy Bremer joining us on Facebook tonight up here. He says, where I'm working, the generators for the government buildings are tested once a month. Yeah,
and again, Guy, great point. It depends on what the mission is, whether it's a life safety or mission critical. When it comes to mission critical, which I would argue and say a jail would fall under that, mission critical requires weekly testing at a minimum. You have to have load tests, you have to have ATS tests, visual inspections at a minimum. And if you're not doing that, then it leads to the failures that you obviously saw 2 weeks ago. And from a taxpayer standpoint, look, the $2.5 million that the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office is over budget on their overtime for the jail, you heard the county commissioners speaking about that. The 3% maximum by state law raise in property taxes won't even cover that $2.5 million. You have something happens inside a jail, catastrophic, and depending on whether ICRIMP, which is the self-insurance, it's the pool that all of the government in Idaho uses, depending on whether they pay for it, the liability issues. I mean, it's going to eventually cost us as taxpayers. So it has a trickle-down effect. And I don't know about you, but I'm getting really sick and tired of how much taxes I'm paying on all fronts. Stupid things like this don't need to occur that could put the county and us as taxpayers at risk, as well as put a massive black eye on Kootenai County for its ineptness.
Well, you should be happy because you have people representing you, like County Commissioner Bruce Matari, and then also Sheriff Bob Norris, that had run on and are working on your behalf on this idea of responsible growth, and they want to stop irresponsible growth. So on that, a little bit of tongue in cheek, David, joining us on Facebook, said, to be fair, the population explosion here was affected the number of people in the jail, and then the need to update the systems like 911. So I'm curious your opinion on that, because you have elected officials campaigning on this idea of responsible growth. We clearly do have a lot of people moving to this area. What kind of a load has it put on? I mean, it seems like that system has been pressed since day one that Norris took office, and he's been crying about it since day one, has done nothing to fix the problem. But this county is only going to continue to grow. So, I mean, is that reason enough that he's wanting to expand?
They've known this problem for 20 years.
Yeah.
Leaders have chosen. When I was contracting here in the early 2000s, they were already feeling the strains of people that were migrating here. And especially the past 10 years, it's mind-boggling. I know that Mark Eberlein had originally put together, when he was a commissioner back in 2016, some jail pod expansions, and then there was some playing around with the budgets, and they ended up not building those. So there was things that were being proactively done and then pulled back. But the 911 issue, you got multiple things going on. Not only do you have an inability. Last year, they spent over $260,000 in retention bonuses for about 10 or 11 employees, because they can't keep 911 operators similar to the jail. And there are those that are working 911 that love the overtime, and they have not been accommodating to new people that are coming on board, and they've created a hostile work environment, from what I have been told by not only dispatchers themselves, but Kootenai County deputies. It goes back down to a leadership issue. Bob Norris has been dealing with this now for 6 years. It still is not solved. The jail is still woefully short on the minimum amount of deputies it needs to have. Until you fix the personnel problem, building more infrastructure isn't good. And lastly, until the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office spends the money to have a forensic audit of the entire operations, you will never hear me advocate for the Kootenai County to have the budgets that they're requesting. Next week, we are going to be talking to an individual that happens to know a lot about the Hayden law enforcement agreement between the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office and Hayden City. There is so much that the Kootenai County budget has grown under Bob Norris, from the mid-30s to over 55 million. It has grown exponentially. And until you have an audit, until you have an actual real forensic audit to not only just look at the books, but to dig in and investigate and find out what has been going on with the budgets for all these years, you can't tell me that everything is being spent judiciously. Their problem solving is always just throw more money at it. And the county commissioners do not tell them no. So I don't want to hear anything about more buildings or anything else until you do the right thing, which is audit and then publish the audit to find out how the money's being spent. And don't let them blow smoke. Yes, they have an annual audit. Big deal. In the business world, we bring outside experts in that look for fraud, that look for inefficiencies. That is what needs to be done. To my understanding, it has never been done at the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. And it's about time that it is. And I'm not going to rest. I will not quit talking about that until I see such actions take place.
You said they have an audit. What does that consist of?
Well, we have our own auditor that they look through the books and it's kind of like if you have your CPA
Yeah.
that says, here, I'm going to do your tax return, and you just give them a box full of receipts and say, here's where I itemize it. And they go, okay, this is what you tell me. And they fill out your form.
Okay.
Whereas an audit goes deeper.
Yeah.
It actually looks and finds out, are you applying your expenses to the right ledger lines?
Yeah, the audit that happens now is basically I'm taking your word for whatever it is you're handing me, and I'm double checking this versus looking
Probably
into
a simple way of
situations.
putting it. Yeah.
For those of us who are less educated.
But we are now way like 3 or 4 times longer on this segment than I was anticipating.
It's time to keep moving. We're going to be talking about something called the Mitchell Event Center. You're like, okay, what is that? Well, I think it is the Mitchell family that lives in Kootenai County that has a hunk of property, a piece of property.
South side of Post Falls, up on the mountain.
And they want to do a family-owned business, create an event center. And it turns out they are being obstructed.
For weddings.
Yeah, a wedding.
Seasonal
Wedding venue is the gist of it. And it turns out they're being obstructed by some elected officials and other important power players here in Kootenai County. You're going to talk about that in just a second. I want to thank the listener that texted the Luke in the Bible, Luke 16, verse 10. Faithful in the small things. That was the verse that I was looking for earlier in the program. So thank you for paying attention and letting me know that is the scripture that I was looking for.
It's also in Proverbs.
Yeah. So Luke 16:10, and then again in Proverbs. So this Mitchell Event Center is still being opposed by Bob Norris. What's the problem?
We just gave the punchline away.
You did?
You just gave the punchline away.
I did?
Yeah.
Oh.
Let's play the video.
That's what's on my notes.
Let's play the video from last December when this was brought up to our attention. It'll lay some of the background, and then we're going to ask the question why Norris is still opposing.
Yes, Mr. Examiner, Sheriff Robert Norris for the record. The Sheriff's Office would like to amend the letter that is dated on September the 19th with no concerns at this time to significant concerns at this time. Most of this has to do with evacuations and the increased fire risk that we continue to have here south of the river. We have recently had a series of events, fires, where evacuation was necessary. And it's not just evacuation for the duration of the fire. The actual evacuation and generally goes on, and there's nobody that's able to come in or out of the area for, depending on the size and the fuel that is available, for 7, 10, 14 days. So it's not just a 1 or 2 or 3 day event. These are long, sustained events. There's only 3 access points to be able to leave that area. And in the event that there was a significant fire, which we have had in that area, it would be very, very difficult to be able to evacuate as many people that live in that community now. So that's, we will be writing a letter to articulate those concerns, but the evacuations, which is the responsibility of the sheriff, I'm very, very concerned about the fire risk, the engraver beetle action that we see south of the river that increases that risk, and evacuations for that entire community.
Okay, this was December 4th, 2025. Hearing examiner meeting for this event center for community input. Those that are for the event center, including the applicant, the Mitchells, and those that support them, and those that are against this development, to include Sheriff Robert Norris, David Lou Cummings, who we're going to hear from shortly, and Cynthia Blaylock, who is an attorney from Southern California that used to represent cops, unions, loves to show how superior she is to the Podunk people in Idaho. She was representing the opposition. This is a hearing for everybody to place their sides. Now, This event center had been under review by all the different agencies, to include the Highway Roads Department, Post Falls Roads Department, Kootenai County Fire Rescue, etc. And originally, the sheriff's office had no issues with it. But once you know, that changed fairly close to when this December 4th meeting took place. Let's see who the next speaker is, David Lou Cummings, see what she has to say. And then we're going to show you some unique characteristics on where she and Bob live in relation to this proposed event center.
Oh.
So do you have a final position as opposed?
We would oppose this application.
Okay, so he opposed this event center after his captain, Andrew Deek, already signed off and said, we have no exception. So apparently between 1 month's time, all of a sudden, Bob Norris comes in and has a concern over fire danger and evacuation. And he also has a problem with a timber beetle, which somebody actually on one of these programs where we were showing this said that they specialize in those beetles. They're like scientists or work for the state, and they're like, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
So Bob Norris's deputies, like Andrew Deek, is either massively incompetent, because if those guys had no issue, and there was a one-liner, we take no issue, to a full-blown letter to where they're now citing fire danger. Well, let's see how truthful they are. Coming up right now is David Lou Cummings, former Homeland Security Special Agent, Human Trafficking, very close to Pastor Paul Van Noy. In fact, in the undercover audio that was released to us, she's with Paul Van Noy as they are discussing my candidacy with a former parishioner. Her husband is also a former Fed that flew helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft for Customs, Border and Customs, I believe. Very tight with Bob Norris, and her husband, until it was recently terminated, was the chief pilot for the Kootenai County Regional Air Support Unit, aka Able One. So keep that in mind. This is who is speaking right now.
My name is David Lou Cummings, and my address is 86, even though it's a Coeur d'Alene address. And I just wanted to mention really quickly before I read this that we've heard a lot about Greens Ferry onto Riverview, but there's also Greens Ferry the other direction can end up on Highland Drive, and that's going to be affected. That's a direction between Greens Ferry and 95. So that is also going to be a course of travel that's affected. My husband and I own and reside on rural property in Kootenai County, approximately 1/2 mile uphill, straight line from the proposed event center. We oppose the approval of this permit. Increased tax burdens on homeowners resulting from wear of roads and increased public safety burden. Increased risk of crime, trespass, and impaired driving. Long-term commercial encroachment into rural neighborhoods resulting in reduced property values. The Mitchell Event Center is fundamentally not compatible with the surrounding community, and this permit should be denied. I additionally request an environmental impact study be conducted before this matter is advanced. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to pause that right there. Reduced value of property for a temporary seasonal use for a couple events a week, claiming extra wear and tear on the road. But how's this different from any other businesses that are up and around that area? Now, on this map, I took the liberty on should be your left side of the screen that says number 2. That is where Sheriff Norris allegedly lives. On the right side where it says number 3, that is where David Lou Cummings lives. And at the bottom of the screen, that circle represents where the event center is. So Bob Norris claims that there's an issue with fire. and evacuation. Well, as we were watching this, because it's being weighed by planners, whether or not they are going to allow this conditional permit usage. You know, you can go ahead and take that off and pull up our slide again. We've been watching this to see, as the wheels move slow, what was going to take place. And so they heard the applicants, the Mitchells, hired their consultants, Virtus, to address some of the claims that Bob Norris was making, specifically about roads and fires. And so they did their due diligence. They brought in their experts and their engineers, and they reviewed additional parking requirements that they could do to help ease some of Norris's concerns. They talked about noise and additional things that they could do to limit the noise, the decibels during the daytime hours, closing everything at 10. And then they also met with the Idaho Department of Lands to discuss specifically about fire evacuation routes. They should be the experts, right? The Idaho Department of Lands, those that oversee wildland firefighting, as well as Kootenai Fire and Rescue. Kootenai Fire and Rescue signed off on it. But yet, Bob Norris comes back in and he says, hey, we still have the same objection. So you have the sitting sheriff and his friend, Dave Alou, who live next to this in close proximity of where this event center is. This is a young family, the applicants. They're supposed to be the traditional family that we all claim that we like, you know, those that have a whole bunch of kids, they're people of faith, they're homeschooling their kids, they're buying property, you know, their dream land. They want to run a little business to teach their kids how to run a small business, how to earn income. They're not on welfare. They're not taking from the state. They're actually putting their own sweat and blood and putting the money up even in the pre-stage for the application process. And here you have stingy old Dave Alou Cummings and stingy Bob Norris, who it is completely laughable that he comes back and contradicts his own captain, who said that there's no issues. We don't have any issues, but Bob has an issue, and it's over fires and the beetles that are destroying. And, you know, there might be an evacuation that has to take place, and he won't let adults be adults and say, okay, go ahead and plan your event. But if there's a fire and we have to evacuate the place, nobody's coming in or out, and buyer beware. And despite the fact that these people, the Mitchells and their consultants, went the extra mile, went the extra 10 miles to consult and to address all of the concerns to prove that it could still be done safely, Sheriff Norris, the little Napoleon tyrant that he is, still says no.
Yeah.
The hypocrisy of a guy that claims that he is for people, for the Constitution, all of the actual real professionals that actually deal with planning and fires and other things have all said, as long as it meets these criteria, it's fine. But Norris still, his guys can't even write anything more than a comment in the application, unlike the other agencies that actually write out a thoughtful letter. But I guess all the Neanderthals in command at Kootenai County Sheriff's Office can't be bothered to actually write an official letter stating what their real objection is.
Why is it, and why is it that the people applying for approval on this have to go to greater lengths? Would you say that these elected officials or these influencers have more clout so they can get up and make a statement and create all this obstruction? I mean, do they really have more of a say in the matter because of their elected positions?
Well, ultimately, the planner, the head planner can, through the hearing examination, can actually bypass, and he can say, yes, based on everything that I've seen, I'm satisfied that it meets minimum state requirements, meets the code per what Idaho Code and Kootenai County requires, and he can actually approve it. So Norris doesn't have the golden wand just by what he says to say you can't, but he's using his influence and his power in his own personal interest in order to obstruct somebody else who wants to do something on their property.
Yeah, and then you run the risk of somebody else in a position to approve or disapprove if they don't want the disapproval of the sitting sheriff. That's going to potentially influence their decision. Chad Dixon, joining us on Facebook, says, okay, wait, let me get this straight. Tax-paying landowners here in North Idaho who want to start their own wedding business are being denied from Kootenai County leaders. I thought we were supposed to support our small business owners since they are pretty much the backbone of our community. Yeah. He's seriously
let me be
confused
very, very clear.
One.
So, Chad,
yeah,
it's still in process. All of the agencies, except for Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, have been extremely by the book and have been doing everything I believe that they can, given their duties, to ensure that these events do adhere to local codes and zoning and other mitigating facts. So I don't think that they have been obstructing, but you do have a sheriff that does pack a lot of weight, chief law enforcement officer of the county, who is in charge of evacuating people in unincorporated areas. And I believe that he is using his position because, again, you can't deny that his own deputies originally approved this, like they do in many other instances throughout the county when it goes through all the departments in Kootenai County to say, you're a stakeholder. What are your comments on this? Any concerns? Are you okay? Originally, it was a one line approved by us. No exceptions. Until Bob Norris got wind of it, allegedly, with David Lou Cummings. We showed you the proximity. They don't want that up around their property because, it's kind of like we are nobility. And how dare the mere peasants pollute our neighborhood with those types of events.
Starting to sound like King Matari. I want to talk about John Padula now.
Let's do it.
I want to talk about John Padula. The Fraternal Order of Police, not all that long ago, put out a statement, and they're like, there's no way we can endorse this guy.
Well, we've got it up there. Let's look at the slides.
Okay, yeah, let's get to... I didn't know if there was more in that other video or if this was okay.
Nope, that was the one and only video.
I'm digging this. So this is what the Fraternal Order of Police... We went to the Wayback Machine there on the internet.
Yeah, because apparently they don't want it online anymore, so they took it off.
They didn't want the contradiction.
Yeah, we're going to be bouncing back and forth between several topics now throughout the rest of this broadcast tonight. So you have up on the screen. This was originally under the Kootenai County Deputy Sheriff's Association, the Fraternal Order of Police. That's a Masonic law enforcement brotherhood, kind of like a union, 43 that came in and they said, hey, we're opposed to John Padula. Here's what they had to say about John Padula 2 years ago.
Golden.
Poor life choices is how to best to describe John Padula. He's a nice guy, but even John Padula himself has admitted he doesn't have the experience necessary for this big of a job. His background includes a long criminal past that the deputies are very familiar with. After 32 arrests, 6 years in prison with one escape attempt, and a junior high education, he was a 7th grade dropout. There was no way we felt he had the qualifications to be a county commissioner. While we believe that his focus on drug rehabilitation serves the segment of, I got to scroll to my next one. And I already lost my spot. Well, we believe that his focus on drug rehabilitation serves that segment of the community well. He simply did not have the experience or qualifications for managing a $140 million plus budget. Plus, the local builders and realtors are backing him because they know that Leslie Duncan is looking for a second vote to open the rapid growth floodgates. This will lead to more irresponsible growth and higher taxes in Kootenai County. We could not support him. So that's 2 years ago. The Masonic police put out their, well, they're the ones that call them the Fraternal Order of Police.
Yeah, I want to clarify because we have new listeners all the time, and sometimes we're like right into the middle of a conversation. But John Padula is running again for county commissioner, whichever seat. He's running again in this small election, and when he ran District 1, when he ran 2 years ago, that was what the Fraternal Order of Police had to say about him when John Padula was running for county commissioner 2 years ago. So I don't know that we made that abundantly clear for anybody coming in on the middle. So that now I'll kick it back to you to continue there with what you were saying.
All right, let's bring back up that slide. We're going to go to what the Fraternal Order of Police have to say today. And by the way, if you don't believe me that it's a Masonic organization, look at their seal, look at their star. It's all Freemasonry copycats. Again, I'm not saying good or bad. I just want you guys to know, Fraternal Order of Police. Here's what they had to say just a few short days ago, and I pulled this off of some of their social media pages. The Kootenai County Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge 43, is an organization primarily made up of Kootenai County Sheriff Office employees. We are the voice of the hard-working men and women who strive to keep Kootenai County safe. Recently, our lodge was contacted by several Kootenai County political candidates seeking our endorsement. Each candidate went through a stringent interview process to see if they share our common goals. We interviewed 4 political candidates, 3 county commissioner candidates, and 1 county assessor candidate. The candidates include John Padula, Julie Hensley, Bruce Matari, and Allison Knapp. From our interview process, we believe the below-mentioned candidates share common goals of improving public safety in Kootenai County. The Kootenai County FOP proudly endorses the following political candidates. District 1, County Commissioner John Padula, County Assessor Allison Knapp. We greatly thank the other candidates for participating in our political candidate endorsement interview process. An additional press release will be released in the near future, further detailing and outlining why we specifically endorse the above 2 political candidates.
I was going to say, right? I actually was going to say, we don't get to know why.
So these are cops that are supposed to be the cream of the crop. Investigators, you have captains, lieutenants, that are sergeants that are part of this FOP. And many of them were hand selected by Norris because they support Norris, and then he rewards them with these command positions. You have these guys that 2 years ago, these great investigators, those that investigate your crimes or what your alleged crimes are or crimes that take place against you. And these knuckleheads 2 years ago concluded, we would assume that it was a very detailed interview process, that John Padula is bad news for the county. He'd been arrested, 32 times, 6 felonies, 1 escape. He had a 7th grade education, was going to join up with Leslie Duncan. In fact, they ran, we're going to show you in just a few minutes, a $10,000 ad campaign where they illegally used, with Bob Norris's permission, the Kootenai County Sheriff's badge in a primary mailer to trick people into thinking that the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, not the FOP, was endorsing certain candidates for office in the primary. But now all of a sudden, apparently 2 years, it erased John Padula's 32 arrests, his 6 convictions, and his attempted escape, and his sleeping with, his own words, close to 1,000 women before he came to the Lord. These guys are a joke. You understand that, right? That these guys are a flaming joke. They're political hacks. See what they're doing. And then you have to ask yourself, why was a candidate that a couple of years ago was against supposedly Bob Norris goes hunting last fall, as we've been told, bear hunting with Bob Norris, and all of a sudden he's now running again for county commissioner, and he's getting the warm and fuzzies from Bob's FOP? Are we all really fooled about this? I don't think so. I'm not fooled. This leads me into another issue with John Padula. Now, last week, we brought to you our complaint that we had submitted to the Secretary of State, who handles elections and campaign finances, a complaint about Padula. 3 weeks later, we had not heard anything, so I hit him up again. They had kicked it to our local Kootenai County Elections Office to investigate. Still haven't heard anything about it, but It, from all appearances, looks like, just going back down memory lane, and we can go to slide number 16. It looks like that Padula received about $4,000 too much during the primary that was slated for the general election, and then never returned those funds like he's required to do under law. We still haven't heard the outcome of that, but as we were looking through Padula's and other local candidates' finances, we did discover yet another issue. So I sent this to the Secretary of State and our local election, Asa Gray, election board, to say, hey, we got another issue. In the first $500 report filed on 1/9/26, Mr. Padula lists the following primary contributions: 1/4/26 Metal Structures of America for $1,000, and 1/4/26 Steel Structures America $1,000. It is my belief that both entities are owned by and or share the same board of directors, Sean and Justin Sternberger, and have over contributed the maximum allowed primary contribution of $1,000 to Padula's campaign per 67-6610A, limitations of contributions. See below for my conclusions. We'll go through those very quickly. You can see that both Metal American Steel Structures are shown as giving $1,000 each in the primary, which is a maximum donation, but they are owned by the same. If we go down to the Idaho Secretary of State, when they formed their LLC, you have Stan Sternberg and Justin Sternberg for Metal America that both formed. And the next page, you have Steel Structures of America, same Justin and Sean Sternberg. And lastly, we have a webpage showing both of them together that are co-owners of Metal America. Now, I'm not alleging that these guys did anything purposely, but Padula, again, doesn't have a good track record, apparently, on how he watches his campaign funds, and it's illegal. You cannot take more money into the primary in violation of the Sunshine Laws. So we haven't heard anything back. We haven't even heard go to hell from Asa Gray. Apparently, what I'm finding out from many of our local county officials is you send in any kind of correspondence and they just blow you off, because after all, you work for them allegedly, and they're just doing you a favor by even receiving your emails. But it is interesting how many times you have to go back and go, hey, did you guys even get our complaint or our request? So it's a little frustrating at times, as if we have enough time just to keep constantly having to stay on top of it.
You pay their salary, but you're such a nuisance when you're making a request. You want something from them.
Page 21. Let's go to this.
All right.
Talking about John Padula. This was from the Kootenai Journal when John Padula ran in 2024. Kootenai Journal says John Padula was the first to announce his candidacy for the Kootenai County Commissioner seat in District 1. He launched his campaign on December 5th, 2023 at a well-attended event, Coeur d'Alene, where Kootenai County Prosecutor Stanley Mortensen introduced John to the audience as a man with integrity. Quote, "It doesn't cross his mind to do anything other than be ethical, follow the law, and demonstrate integrity," end quote, stated Mortensen. Now, I remember 2023-24 pretty well because I was running for sheriff at that time. And I remember after Stan Mortensen had done this, that he got counseled, that was reported to me by those inside Padula's campaign. He was counseled, yeah, Stan, you cannot be endorsing Padula, because Padula isn't Kootenai County Sheriff's Office guy. It's not part of the KCRCC guy. So you guys have to stop doing that, Stan. Stan was a former Kootenai County deputy who then went to law school, became a deputy prosecutor, was appointed to fill in for Barry McHugh that had resigned as the prosecutor in order to take a position on the bench. And then, of course, you have Stan that ran unopposed in 24, and he's halfway through his first elected term. But a couple things. Those that were with Padula that night when Stan introduced him. Stan went on to talk about the friendship that they had allegedly developed while Stan was working in the jail as a Kootenai County Sheriff's deputy, and that he and John were very close together. He may have even, if I recall correctly, was one of two public officials that had promoted and encouraged John to run. But here's where I have a little bit of an issue that we're going to be watching. Ultimately, if a crime occurs, whether it's a misdemeanor or whether it's a felony, and these little dollar amounts we're talking about with the campaign, they're negligible. I just want to be clear. I don't think anybody ever does any prison time or serves any real hard penalties other than Brent Reagan that was fined $1,000 for over contributing as the president of the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee back in 24. But Stan is very close to some of these individuals by his own admission. So if the local election board kicks it to Stan Mortenson's office, how do we know that Stan's going to look at it impartially and that there is going to be a real investigation, not just like what I think I've seen Stan do, personal opinion on other things, just blow it off because he's friends with, like Bob Norris, when Bob Norris and Brett Surplus and Sleepy Dale Gibney were running around with their law and order candidate forms. They were all campaigning, doing town halls together. And then I guess somebody gave Stan the word you probably shouldn't be doing it. I couldn't find it. I'll find it. Yes, we're going to actually hit that. So let's keep going on. Yeah. This comes back down to the FOP's mailer where you'll see it right here. They've got the Kootenai County Sheriff's star. Bob Norris even admitted in a YouTube video to allowing the FOP in violation of state law to use the Kootenai County Sheriff's badge on this mailer. Republican call to action, all the buzzwords, manipulation. Join our front line against the establishment. Ooh, that's edgy. Of course, Bob Norris is the biggest recipient. This mailer, I think, cost him over $10,000 to mail out. Yeah. They got money from Trafficor that gave to the PAC. We showed that record. And of course, we have been discussing that the Trafficor and Land Kicker, owned by Dan and Carrie Edwards, former mayor of Dalton Gardens, Bob Norris' son, who used to be a deputy, now works for the Edwards at Trafficor. They funded that $10,000 for the deputies to put this mailer out. Look.
You got a couple of problems on this mailer. You got the use of the badge that you were already talking about. Yeah. And they're really not supposed to be plopping the Donald Trump. And this is another thing. It's like you can do it and get away with it.
Well, they're really, law enforcement. So, standards never apply to law enforcement around here, I've noticed.
You can't do that.
You have Bob Norris again. He allowed him to use the badge, and of course, they're going to back him. It's a pay-to-play scheme. Look right to the right side. Anti-establishment candidates, and what do you know? Bob Norris, Dale Gibney, Surplus, and then Stanley Mortenson. Isn't that interesting? Stanley Mortenson, of course, is. I mean, okay. and I get it. Okay. Those that book them, that hook them and book them want to make certain that their cases go through. I get it. I mean, more things. The Puppet Master. Then you have at the bottom again. Remember, 2 years ago, the same FOP that couldn't stand Padula put this mailer out. Said he's a convicted felon, arrested 32 times, former fugitive, 7th grade dropout, flush with home builder donations, too dangerous to trust. So let me ask you, FOP stooges, you fools, what the hell has changed in the past 2 years? You freaking juvenile hacks. Part of the dysfunction of the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, had I been fortunate enough to have won that election, I would have broken up that FOP. I would not have allowed these organizations that can then support their sheriff in a fair election. There should be none of that. Absolutely none of it. And you see the shenanigans that these guys are pulling right now. And you have to ask yourself, why are they all of a sudden behind John Padula? What has changed? Did his convictions change? Did his arrest change? Did his warrants change? Did his sleeping with close to, by his own admission, over 1,000 or close to 1,000 women? We don't know how many of those were minors, by the way.
Well, maybe he got his GED because they were ripping on him for only having a 7th grade education.
What a bunch of fools.
Yeah.
Again, but Stan is supported by this incestuous beast. And now Padula is the golden child. So is Padula going to be held accountable for his extremely sloppy bookkeeping for his campaigns?
Yeah, I don't know.
It brings me back down to 2024 when those of you who have already watched the part 1 of Show Your Proof, little memory lane, those of you who remember the conversation that I had with Tim Remington that was recorded, where Tim talks about what a problem Bob and Bruce are and how Bruce is the brains of the group and all of the other things that were associated, like, Terry Seymour that causes problems, as he was attempting to coerce me into that Show Your Proof event. If you haven't listened to that in a while, you should go back and find it in our archives. Listen to Tim trying to coerce me into that Show Your Proof event. And it was during this conversation that Remington says, they're going to have a prosecuting attorney there. So in addition to Sheriff Bob Norris and County Commissioner Bruce Matari, who in their official capacities, as was reflected in their name placards at that event, were also bringing a prosecuting attorney. And at the time, I had no knowledge of who this person was. So I contacted Stan Mortensen. And again, I want to show you the kind of guy Stan is. We're going to get to why what happened a couple of years ago is also relevant to just today. In March of 2024, March 11, 2024, when I heard that they were going to provide a prosecuting attorney, because it was starting to look like to me that I was being set up by a bunch of public officials in a campaign rather than campaigners to campaigners. I put out a request to him and I said, hey, please provide your office's guidelines for the scheduled Show Your Proof public meeting that you or any deputy prosecuting attorney have agreed to participate in with Sheriff Bob Norris and County Commissioner Bruce Matari on 3/14/24 at the Altar Church, and please provide your legal authority to participate in such a novel compulsion to me. Stan responds back and he says, Mr. Wilson, I will not be at this meeting. I was never asked to attend or participate in the meeting. He really didn't answer my entire question, though, right? Wanted to know what policies were and what his stance was. So I reached out again and I asked him, I said, hey, this is page 25. Mr. Mortensen, I appreciate the quick response. We've been advised by a pastor at the church that a prosecutor has been secured for the event. Can you confirm that no one from your office will be participating? So this is what your prosecuting attorney had to say to a response from a citizen. And on the campaign trail, you have sound bites of him saying, I want to give all citizens the amount of time that they need. His response to me was, at this moment, I am in the middle of a murder trial and my own campaign. I'm going to direct your attention to whoever you spoke at the Altar Church. So he never really did answer fully my question. And I don't give a shit, Stan, that you're running your campaign. I am asking you in your official capacity as the prosecuting attorney, and yet you were running unopposed, but you have your own campaign to run. What campaign did you ever do besides running around with the other Fruit Loops on your Law and Order tour and complaining like you did at the very beginning when you were before the KCRCC board as they were attempting to submit 3 applicants to the county commissioners for the appointed position for the vacancy? When you were complaining, I was there that night when you were complaining, Stan Mortensen, that, you just felt like because you were a Mormon, that from a religious standpoint, you weren't going to get very much of a good shake. Now, I'm sort of paraphrasing, but not really. You were there that night.
Yeah, I remember
How
that.
pathetic, Stan. I mean, really? But you're running your own campaign. And so I look at the way you respond to these things, and I take note. Last week, we talked to you about the tip that we received regarding Doug Parker Toyota, and his arrest. We walked you through what we knew at that time. Page 26, I'm going to go to my slide here. I'll start running this myself since I know where I'm going. This was our anonymous tip last week. Hey, check this out. We ran it down. We found Doug Parker was booked on February 27th for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Somebody advised us that his charges were changed or he was not booked. So we asked the question. Submitted to Kootenai County Sheriff's Office records, said, hey, I want the CADs, I want the incident report, body-worn camera, all the particulars, and I receive a denial. Sorry, denied. I asked records and said, hey, why am I being denied? On what grounds? Who denied it? And I want the emails back and forth between whoever told you that I can't have these records. Highly irregular, in my opinion, from what I've experienced with other requests. So the email that I was given was from the prosecuting attorney's office. Deputy prosecutor clerk said, hey, we are opposed to the release of this under Idaho Code 74. I think it's 106B. Don't quote me. It's too small. I can't read it right now from the screen. But it was irrelevant. It said, it could jeopardize the defendant's right to a fair trial. And it just didn't make sense. So I challenged it. I sent Stan Mortensen a challenge. I read you that challenge last week. I'm not going to read it to you again. But suffice to say, a week later, after I sent my challenge and asking for clarification from Stan Mortensen, I received nothing. So I sent him a letter this Tuesday. Mr. Mortensen, I sent you a letter last week challenging the denial of the initial CAD report and incident arrest report dated 2/27. I've not received any response. Please provide a clear, specific explanation of exactly how releasing the records deprive the arrestee of a fair trial or impartial adjudication as required by Idaho Code 74-124. So I was wrong, 74-124-1B. KCSO has already publicly released the arrestee's names and charges, which the law says must be disclosed. The sheriff's office is the legal custodian of these records and must make it its own independent decision. I respectfully ask you for your written response within the next 5 business days, either releasing the records or the non-exempt parts or giving a detailed explanation of the specific harm. If I do not hear back, I'll have to pursue this through the courts as allowed under Idaho law. What else do you guys do? You send a request in to the prosecutor, it's carbon copy to all the stakeholders, and they blow you off. They don't even say, go to hell, I received it, whatever. It's just silence. We apparently don't have to in a week's time ever answer you because we're all so freaking busy and you're just a troublemaker, Wilson. You don't get the same service as the other citizens in this county. Or maybe I do. Maybe this is what it's like for some of you out there. I received this response back a little bit later after I sent my follow-up on Monday. Mr. Wilson, as you have aptly pointed out, the KCSO is the legal custodian of the records you have requested, and it is their decision to release them or not. As the prosecutor, it is my responsibility to give advice to the public officers of Kootenai County, such as the sheriff and or his employees. Any advice I give to my clients, such as the sheriff and or his employees, is protected by attorney-client privilege. While you may be able to challenge a decision not to release records to you, you cannot challenge legal advice my office gives to a client, nor are you entitled to an explanation of legal advice given. Either way, your concerns should be directed to the KCSO, not my office. Please note that while I've responded to your email as a professional courtesy, any subsequent emails you send to my office regarding this request will not be responded to.
Oh, okay.
Listen, you cad.
Excuse me.
You never even read the original freaking email that I sent you that your own office, they're the ones that said, Kootenai County, you can't release this. Your guys were the ones that cited the code that was not applicable, and you got caught. So rather than actually read what I sent you, because there's no indication, no reflection in your response that you actually read what I had to say, because, you can't be bothered with it, right, Stanley? Is it more Mormon bashing? Are you under persecution for Mormon bashing, or just a bad day, or people don't like you, or what is it? Or is it you don't like the fact that possibly there is something going on and you're now in the middle of it? Because that was what started all this. Somebody out of the blue, my guess is somebody on the inside sent us that letter saying, hey, this guy was booked in on this date and time. It was changed. The only person that could have changed that is the sheriff. Look into it. And we did. So I sent back my request to the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office because they were carbon copied on this scathing letter, putting me in my place. You don't deserve, you're not owed an explanation. I'm not going to respond to you any further. Cool. I'm so convinced, Dan, that, man, you're a real Perry Mason.
Maybe if you identify as something, and you can claim that as discrimination, you'll get better treatment.
Well, he is the guy that when he spoke at the Kootenai County Human Rights Task Force was bragging, as I recall when I watched the video, that he had personally charged five individuals with enhanced hate crimes. Because that's so American, hate crimes and hate speech, right? All you people that believe that the Constitution has to be enhanced, as if there is such thing as a hate speech or a hate crime. Thought all crimes are based on hate for the most part. Somebody wrongs you, they do it because they hate you, not because they love you. But this is the kind of caliber of Stan, whose dad was, by what Stan said, an FBI agent his entire career. Stan that's friends with John Padula. Stan that was friends with Bob Norris, running unopposed. Apparently did not read what I had originally sent him that his own office had written. But he wants to sit here and kind of be condescending. The way I took it. So I sent it back to the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office and said, hey, based on the prosecutor's own statements, you guys are good to go to release it. And once you know, son of a bitch, today, what do I get? Let's throw that back up.
Son of a bitch.
Doesn't sound as funny when you're saying
I tried.
No.
I tried.
You cuss like Dave Riley.
Before Dan tells you, sure enough, whatever it is, he gets back. He's about to tell you here in a second. One of you specifically there in the comments was raising a point about John Padula being a solid guy. That's Elizabeth joining us there on YouTube. Hang on with us because we will get to a response on that comment, but we're going to finish this up first. Go ahead, Dan.
Response back today from Kootenai County Sheriff's Office when I kicked it back to them and said, hey, no problem. Well, guess what? They denied it. Case is still active at KC Prosecuting Attorney Office.
Oh,
so you see how that works?
Still active.
They originally had no issue, as was evident by the email that they sent to the prosecutor saying, hey, are you okay to release this? No, we're not. It gets challenged, and what do you get? You get obstruction again. So why does that matter? Because what it does is it takes something like this Parker issue, this story, and it starts to make maybe something that wasn't originally below board, something that was legitimate, because of lack of transparency, starts making those rumors that are being said on the sidelines to sound more and more credible. Therefore, because the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office wants to play these games with me, along with Stan Mortensen in the prosecutor's office, we're going to let you guys know exactly what a deputy told me about what took place. Again, not saying any of this is true, but because we can't get transparency, the minimum from our friends at the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, the incident report and the CAD, to be able to dispel the mess immediately, here's what we're going to tell you. DP, this is again February 27th, DP for Doug Parker, again, not alleging he did any of this. I'm just telling you what was reported to me by a deputy. He was up on land in Kootenai County and observes the victim on an adjacent property working his dogs. So DP is up someplace and he notices the victim on an adjacent property working dogs. DP orders victim to leave, stating he does not have permission to be on the property, and victim counters and insists that he does indeed have permission from owner and was not trespassing. DP then draws a handgun from a belted holster and aims it at the victim.
Oh.
Victim leaves and calls Kootenai County Sheriff's Office to report the assault, provides license plate and descriptors of the gun. You can go to the next page. KCSO deputies run plate and it comes back to Parker Toyota. They contact Parker Toyota and inquire about vehicle and told by staff that Doug Parker is in possession of the vehicle. Deputies make contact with Doug Parker, who denies victim's account, stating handgun remained in holster at all times and was not drawn. Deputies inspect the handgun and key indicators on gun match victim's statement. I'm going to say that again. They inspect the handgun and key indicators on gun match the victim's statement. Deputies arrest DP for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and transport him to book into the Kootenai County Sheriff's Jail. During booking, JP, we were being told it was Jim Parker's son, contacts Kootenai County Sheriff's Office brass, very irate and angry, and that Lieutenant Sifford intervenes. Doug Parker is suddenly released due to an unknown medical issue and voluntarily transports himself for a medical evaluation at some nearby medical facility, probably hospital. A patrol sergeant is furious and argues with Sifford over the ordered release. Sounds like Sifford came in and interfered with the deputy's rightful arrest. Bookings were changed from in custody to out of custody, and a charging referral was sent to the prosecuting attorney. That means they didn't book him. And they said, hey, here's what we got. You guys can do whatever you want with it, but he's not in our custody. Sometimes some of those are called cite and release. Wilson was denied the CAD incident report on request from Deputy Prosecuting Attorney on a nonsensical Idaho code. Wilson challenges Prosecuting Attorney Mortensen and says KCSO can release. KCSO now refuses to release, citing ongoing investigation. So there you go. Of course, we won't know until we see what the final report has to say whenever they decide to release that. But this wasn't something that Dan Wilson just randomly decided, hey, I'm going to make this an issue. We had whistleblowers, now two, that came up and they were so pissed off about what had taken place that they were very articulate in their details that started us on this entire trail, if you will. And I had this story last week. Deputies told me this last week. But here's the issue. I went and exhausted what I thought was my appeals. And as you can see, I think you'll, of reasonable mind, also come to the same conclusion that they're just flat out playing games. Then you have to ask the question, was there preferential treatment given to the arrestee, Doug Parker, for the charge of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon? Again, he's not convicted yet. He's only charged. We found those charging documents that we requested from the jail. So that was public. It was public, his name. It was public, the date he was arrested. It was public, the charges that were that he was placed under. Kootenai County Sheriff's Office and the prosecuting attorney, if you want full transparency and you don't want to be accused of being involved in a cover-up or preferential treatment, then you need to cut the rumors out immediately. And you know damn good and well that if I'm starting to look into something, your best bet is to be transparent from day one. Not day 10, not day 20, but day one. Similar with the helicopter. I came in and I asked for 18 months. Where is the insurance? Show me the insurance. Well, we have the insurance, but we can't provide it to you. Show me the insurance. Trust us. It's there, dude. Show us the insurance. Eventually, the entire project, the entire program gets shut down because they can't afford the insurance that they never had, that they all claim they had in the first place. So Stan Mortensen, prosecuting attorney, I expect more out of you. I expect better responses out of you. Thoughtful. I don't work for you. You do serve me and all the other citizens in Kootenai County. You don't just serve Bob Norris, and all other law enforcement. You need people like me. They're constantly digging like the media used to do, that media doesn't do anywhere around here in Kootenai County, to start anytime there's a thread and you start pulling it to see where does it lead. Now, I hope, Stan, that this is a big nothing and we can all laugh about it, but it's all this stuff right here, just like with the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, that makes all of these whistleblowing allegations appear to be very, very freaking credible. And lastly, I'll say that there is such an incestuous relationship in this small county. As Teresa Bornpole has found out in the faux investigation that the Attorney General supposedly did, where they interviewed victims and those around Teresa Bornpole, but failed to actually use that in their final report, where they said, we found no wrongdoing. Bob Norris, we didn't find that he acted with malice or, any bad intent. And that's their conclusion. Nobody is policing people on their own side. And if you think just because you're a Republican that you're safe in this county, don't bet on it. There are more than enough Republicans that have stepped out of line in the incestuous relationship, and all you have to do is look at all of them hanging out together, watch their body language when they're all together, watch when they fraternize together, watch who's supporting who during elections. It tells you everything you need to know about whether or not there's transparency. And if the Democrats were doing this, all you Republicans, all you self-proclaimed conservatives would be out of your minds. But Idaho, while it is not very regulated, that doesn't always mean a good thing for keeping elected officials accountable. And we have no media around here that's interested in keeping anybody accountable.
We don't. We had somebody, we talked about John Padula, who's also fraternizing with a lot of the names that we've been talking about tonight. We had a question earlier here just a bit ago from Elizabeth joining us on YouTube. And I want to say she's had some follow-up comments appreciating that we're going to address this and admitting, hey, this is just my experience of John Padula. It's just my 2 cents. So I want just to reiterate that what she's putting out there, she's done really respectfully. Yeah. So the point is that she had said earlier, John Padula is a solid guy. So judging him by his past, that's more than 15 years ago, that's crazy business to do that. I understand the comment. I truly do, because when Padula's name first came up in the last election and before I see, Elizabeth, you have had an experience of John Padula. So have I personally, which is very different from the account that you're giving, which I think is typical because people can have different experiences depending on those interactions. But before I had known about him what I do now, I remember thinking even what Fraternal Order Police had to say about him. We can't endorse him and all of those things in his 7th grade education. I read that at the time and I was like, oh, bro, that's low. Like, that was low.
We defended him.
We did defend him.
I actually defended John Padula against Bruce Matari back when Bruce Matari wrote his unsolicited letter to Kootenai County Republican Central Committee PCs as they went around to tally who they were going to put on their rated and vetted endorsed flyer. And yeah, I came after him. The 7th grade thing, again, I'm not going to go so low and say that I have an issue with that. No. Many men can become educated on their own.
Never did.
But here's where my issue with John Padula comes in. In the early stages of the campaign, they were getting a lot of pressure for being in the Dan Wilson camp because John Padula and I several times actually met together. We texted each other. We thought we were both running up against the machine. And John Padula told me a story that the videos that we show in the Show Your Proof, where we show Bob crying and we're challenging why Bruce Matari has this special deputization. John Padula said that Bruce Matari came over and was pretending to choke the screen. He was so mad about the videos that I was putting out. And John's telling me what's going on. But somewhere between the Show Your Proof event, when I just had this prompting, I have never recorded anybody prior to that time, nor have I since. But I did record a conversation where Tim Remington was for an hour attempting to coerce me to go to that event. We played it. I'm so glad I did. In fact, it was a prompting, my belief, in the spiritual realm to do so, because at one point, and we played the entire broadcast so you can hear, at one point I said, in essence, no, I am sick and tired of people letting effing something go on. And I said the full-blown F word to a pastor that specializes in recovery, and he's around drug addicts and convicts. And we concluded the phone call about 15 minutes later after I dropped this F-bomb, and everything was, I thought, on the up and up. I saved that recording for my own use because I'd been gaslit so much that I was starting to lose my mind, wondering, why am I hearing all the things that I'm hearing that then people are coming back and saying did not occur? Hours after this conversation ended with who I thought was private, just me and Tim Remington, John Padula is running around telling people in his campaign, and it's spreading like a wildfire, that I had cussed Pastor Tim out. Not just dropped an F-bomb, but was cussing him out and yelling and screaming at him. Anybody that has heard that entire hour-long conversation can come away to conclusions. Number one, I was never hostile. I never yelled at him. And I only used the F word one time, and it wasn't directed directly at him. But John Padula started this lie, and he was asked to stop. And eventually we let it die down. But towards the end of the campaign, as things were heating up exponentially, those that were supporters of mine that also went to the altar church started talking about this lie again, that I had cussed out, uncontrollably cussed out in a violent tirade, Pastor Tim Remington. And so I gave them the opportunity. I emailed both of them and said, hey, we got to put this out. This rumor is spreading like a wildfire, and it is damaging my reputation. And that's not what happened. And both those guys blew me off. Tim Remington said, I'm not going to have anything to do with you. You're acting like a child. And so therefore, screw you. Later on, Dawna and I had a conversation. Dawna was in the room when I contacted John, and John doubled down. He was not going to reverse. Even though I said I have the entire recording, we can play it. I know exactly what did and did not take place. He continued to state the lie, and he never retracted it. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? Why would a man who alleges that he's a follower of Christ, a shepherd of men, why would he lie like that? He'd already lost the primary. It's a question that I've wrestled with many times, and some of my theories are dark. Some are, he's just that immature. He's like a lot of pastors. But I realize his background and his experience, and I don't believe it was being naive. I believe it was 100% malicious. And then as time went on and I saw him cozying up to Bob Norris, the other thing that we haven't discussed about John and his character is his decision-making with his housing arrangements with those that lived with him. He came out on his own Facebook page and acknowledged that he had children that were abused by some of the residents or a resident. In fact, this guy was arrested and I believe he was eventually sentenced. But there was no living separation. Those that are familiar with John's place knew that he took in these transitional convicts and had them doubled up in his house. No separation between where these men stayed and where his young family stayed. They commingled, from what I've been told. And my understanding is that family members of John were abused. I believe it is true. In fact, I believe that I've seen John in his own Facebook posts discussing some of this that we have screenshots of. This is an issue with a guy that has, at a minimum, poor decision-making skills. If my kids were injured, the last thing I'd be doing was running for office. I'd be doing everything I could to heal my family. But when you look at what the whistleblowers have come forward, including the, again, undercover recording that people take, that they find us and then give them to us, people that we never knew prior to them contacting us. You find out the beliefs of Tim Remington behind the scenes and John Padula. And these are men that I believe are wolves in sheep clothing. They may do 100 good things, but if they do one really, really bad thing, does it not undo all the good things that they allegedly do? And you should look up their financials too. That's the problem today, is we mix this undying belief and faith in men who claim the name of Christ, claim that they're clergy. We don't hold them accountable. We don't require them to pass any kind of litmus test. Why Paul Van Noy is still sitting where he's doing right now at Candlelight. He's used to all these controversies. He's used to them coming and going. He's used to weathering the storm. He'll eventually blow by. We haven't forgotten. We have much more to be disclosed at a later date. He's not going to pass by us, but there's a guy that covered up sex abuse of his own daughter and others under his congregation, who admitted that he molested his next door neighbor when he was a teenager. And his own sister admitted that he had molested her for years in an incestuous act. And he allows sex offenders to roam the church and to attend there without notifying anyone in the congregation of what's going on. We've showed you Ian Shadd, a recent sex offender that's on the sex offender registry, that is hanging out with the youth group, including Stephanie Fetzer's own daughters. So I'm sorry. Somebody that does supposed good, if they do something that is unacceptably bad, and we're not just talking about you slip from time to time, but if they do something bad, like allowing your own children to suffer at the hands of those that you're ministering to, John Padula should be nowhere near the Kootenai County Commissioner's office.
I had Elizabeth on YouTube that was still defending. She appreciates the insight in the comments, but still defending Padula. So with some saying some part of what you said was a lie. I'm thinking maybe it was your comment about there not being separation in his home where he's housing the individuals that are the residents for rehab, that there's no separation between the residents and then his family. I'm not sure. Elizabeth, you can clarify that comment in terms of what you were saying was a lie. But I do want to put up on the screen Amy Fonstrom, because this is a long comment. It partially gets cut off here on our platform, but for those of you joining us on Facebook, you can see all of what Amy Fonstrom had to say, because this, again, is an example of somebody who's had a personal experience with John Padula, and it's important to take all of this into consideration. So Amy says, for anyone who doesn't know, I worked on John Padula's campaign in the last time he ran for office. I didn't know him, but definitely got to know him, and I witnessed him live several times. I've watched several things that you would not see a pastor do, not to mention that during our campaign, he left his kids home with the men and his drug rehabilitation program for them to babysit, and one of them is in jail now for molesting his daughter. There's more to that comment that gets cut off on my platform here, but Amy is firsthand witness, yeah. And so that is why it's important to interject that comment when you still have those who are coming out to defend John Padula, like, how dare you hold his past against him? That's 15 years ago. Kind of seems like you're just jealous, that sort of thing. But contrast that with other firsthand accounts of people who have worked closely also with John Padula and have a very different experience of him.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to saying, when it comes to those that are supposed to be shepherds, zero tolerance. There are certain things you don't cross. Anybody that lets his own family, because of his own negligence, be harmed, whether it's Padula, whether it is Van Noy, I have zero respect. They should be nowhere near the ministry. They should go back and attend to their own family and make certain their family's healed, rather than trying to heal the rest of the community.
Yeah, you have those saying that both Padula and Remington believe in this works-based or this ongoing movement towards salvation rather than the once saved, always saved philosophy. And I think the issue, or maybe what that allows them, in their mind, what that allows them is that also with ongoing bad that you do throughout your life, you can, in this ongoing fashion, it kind of cancels each other out. They cancel themselves out because it's a works-based salvation. So you have these things such as John Padula putting his children at risk and something very bad, a molestation happens. And we know this because this stuff, it's public record that this guy, there was a conviction.
Well, and we have a recording that we have not been given permission to release it in its entirety. We've released some of it.
You're right.
And here's the unfortunate part. Yeah. Some of it actually dives into how dysfunctional John Padula's family is.
You're right.
Specifically his wife.
Yeah.
And I'm not, and you have Tim Remington admitting to it.
Yeah.
So, we receive all sorts of good, credible evidence that we're not given permission to actually use because people are afraid of retaliation.
Which shows, when we call them power player pastors, that shows what their position is in this community and why people are literally deathly afraid, which is why we've had an ongoing citizen-based investigation and what we had been exposing here through alternative media, even with Pastor Paul Van Oy, and it's full steam ahead. And then you hit a wall and it kind of seems like, all right, well, we were obstructed or there was not enough evidence for any of that. And it's all just going to go by the wayside. But what you're really dealing with is you have very credible witnesses, people who have the most damning evidence that are just, they're too terrified and have too much to lose to come forward. And so these men who are literally out of control are allowed to continue in this cycle of abuse.
Love Always Elizabeth says there was always separation between the man and his family. Again, you're saying that. I have people very credible.
Amy right here says, I've been in the home and there was no separation.
I actually
of the men and
know
family.
Two individuals, men that were in there that would argue and say otherwise. And again, the other question is, and how was the child abused if there was separation? I mean, how did that individual get alone time to be able to violate a child if there was this correct concentric rings of security, so to speak?
Complicated situation. I mean, when somebody has a pathway to abuse, they'll find a location to do it. I mean, even if it wasn't necessarily in the home there, that's all speculation. They'll find a method and means.
Tyler says that's an absolute lie. They sleep in a different area, but no separation between the two. Very commingled. And here's a thing that we have heard as well, that at one time it was men and women, but for obvious problematic reasons, they had to separate it again to just males.
The fact that they even had to test pilot that to figure that one out blows my mind.
Yeah. Any other questions? We're coming up close to 2 hours.
Yeah, I guess I was going to say, hey, we might end a bit early tonight because we've gotten used to these 2 hour long broadcasts, but we're getting out toward wrapping it up here. So if you have any other questions or comments, you can put those into the comment section right now and Dan can fully address them. You can also give our number a call at 208-366-4671. That number is always in working order where you can leave a voicemail or send a text, and we can keep your name private that way if you'd like. Just ask us to do that. That's 208-366-4671. But otherwise, I think
let's bring up our last slide.
Wrapping it up. Let's
very
do
last.
All right.
Quote of the night, James Madison. The right of freely examining public characters and measures and of free communications among the people thereon has ever been justly deemed the only effectual guardian of every other right. So, going back to the public records request and constantly staying vigilant on top of our elected officials, all these guys listen to them when they first start running. They want transparent government that serves the people. Then they get into office. They realize that it's a lot tougher. It's not as convenient. They get worn down. Human nature being what it is, That's why it is up to us, all of you, because you guys can all do the same thing, to also demand to look at records and to push back when you believe that you are being obstructed. I mean, it wouldn't be the very first time that people have had to go to court to force a judge to say, yeah, quit obstructing. You guys are hiding behind these obscure, ridiculous Idaho codes that they're hoping they can bluff you, that won't actually cause the damage that they're claiming or be a reason for them to not release the information. But at the end of the day, you guys can do the exact same thing, especially how easy it is going online. All government agencies have a spot where you can fill out your very own records request. So you guys need to help out and keep everybody accountable in this county.
Some things I want to address again briefly. Mary Jane, thanks for joining us on Facebook, says, very interested in what you're saying. That's just a brief one. I want to bring up this censored person joining us on YouTube. There's a reason you're censored. We get it. Says, I don't want to risk losing my life for the sake of calling out Tim Remington's crimes when I know I'm only one of many victims and he still won't be found guilty. You took my thing off the screen. Why suicide for no gain? And that, I mean, yes, censored person, that specific comment is, of course, unique to you, but we have heard that over and over again that to now, today, it's impossible for me to deny that there are victims of crimes because there have just been too many very highly specific testimonials to exactly the same thing. And it makes sense as to why we've had people tell us, I've suffered enough, suffered for years. The freedom such as it is that I have now through recovery has been hard fought. And they don't have it in them or the wherewithal to go up against a man and a machine like that. They just don't. Go ahead. I think I wanted you to address this one too, Dan.
Brandon Smith, John is an incredible man to overcome everything he has and to dedicate his entire life to help and love people that have struggled so much is beautiful. This world needs more God-fearing men like him. The enemy will always attack the truth, and that's exactly what this is. Thank you, Lord, for your discernment to see right through the evil gossip. Okay, Brandon Smith, put your money where your mouth is. Disprove what I've said is a lie. Very simple, unless you want to put your head in the sand and you just want to think that because things are on outward appearance good, that you can easily justify anything else bad going on the back end that are actually pretty egregious things, then tell me where am I a liar?
Just give a quick rundown of that, because you never know if he jumped in halfway or even here toward the end of the conversation. The quick rundown of John, some of the things you were stating about John Padula that you're saying, show me where it's a lie.
Show me where I lied when I said that he got caught lying about me supposedly cussing out Tim Remington and refused to correct the record. That is for starters. Do you have knowledge that didn't occur, or is that okay because it's just a small little lie?
Probably.
What about, again, his daughter being abused right under his nose? You don't think that is an egregious thing? Again, there are other things that I want to say the one thing that I want to say.
Yeah.
Dysfunction in his family. Go up and ask Tim Remington. Ask him about his own marriage and the things that have occurred in his marriage in just the past few years. Prove that this stuff isn't true. Prove that it wasn't true that he wasn't out hunting and left his daughter in a truck with an abuser. Prove that didn't take place. If you have a pastor that was confronted directly and told, you're lying, you need to fix it, given the evidence to prove that he's lying, and he continues to double down, what is that called? I stand by what I said.
Issue you have with a lot of these powerful pastors in this community is that they know how to play the field, so to speak. They know how to do plenty of good and do good in the eyes of many people. And how is it not an effort then to outweigh when we're exposing the bad and the evil that's going on at the hands of these same people, of John Padula or Pastor Paul Van Noy or Tim Remington, and it's being exposed? Sure, they can equally go do a lot of good. I understand that this hand can do that and that hand can do that.
Who's paying for John's house? The house that he lives in, how is that house funded? And don't tell me that it's just from his salary from the altar church. Have you guys pulled the Secretary of State filings? Have you pulled out the 990s? Well, why don't you do that? Yeah, he's not taking a salary, but there are other ways to use money, right? And don't tell me that it takes $200,000 or $300,000 a year just to feed half a dozen guys. Give me a break.
Yeah, and you got to let go of the church jargon that you can't expose these people for doing exactly what they're doing, and it is evidence-based, and it is firsthand witness account based. And I am so sick of hearing, let's just gossip.
Tim Remington,
just gossip.
How many properties does he own outright in his Tim Remington Trust with his wife? How many homes or properties rather, and homes above Wolf Lodge does he have? How many of those is he leasing for an undisclosed amount to the Good Samaritan Ranch project? Who's paying? I mean, you think about this. You're a pastor, a recovery pastor. You have it in with judges and with prosecuting attorneys and probation, and you get all these guys deferred to come through your program at $3,500 or whack or whatever it is, and they come through. Where does that money go? Some of it's going to be living expenses. I get it, but what kind of a scam is actually being run? I've never heard of this model before, where you have an actual pastor that owns property.
Yeah.
He has a ministry. People give to it. I don't know if that one's a 501c3 or not. I got to be careful. But he's definitely getting money from state. He's getting the referrals from, the judges and prosecutors. I mean, you got Stan Morrison that's friends with John. I mean, are we supposed to just believe on the up and up that when John Padula brags that Judge Randall and him were out hunting, as he told me directly, and Randall encouraged him to run, that somehow they keep all of that, completely at bay, and that none of that relationship interferes with business that may be pushed towards Padula? And how do you guys know that this is a real ministry? I mean, a real ministry would be all these areas of separation where they're not getting one dime from it.
Yeah,
no money's going to buy a residence that's in their name or in a trust or an LLC or whatever else.
Therein lies the problem.
That's a scam.
Therein lies the problem, because you can put anything under the name of a church, call it a ministry, and it's breeding ground for perfect crimes, as we've talked about over and over again. And it's a great business model, and you got lots of protection doing it that way. As a tip we got here at our phone number or through a text, are you aware of the private security that all the big churches are hiring that are feeding from the fear of Kyle Odom being released? He says candlelight is, the altar is, from what he hears. Lucky's involved with the upping private security. And this person says they know
lumpy, short.
They know Lucky personally.
Is in security. I don't think Lucky could probably run 100 feet without dying of a heart attack. So what's he doing? The brains behind the operation?
He's probably the brain. I thought you'd get a kick out of that one, even though it was kind of off. That was out pocket.
Look, I mean, this is plain ridiculous, and furthermore, this is it's manipulating the congregation. It's manipulating the public.
Well, you can.
He's on an ankle monitor. There are people that are observing him. So, I mean,
it's like churches, they really have resorted to creating, like, if it bleeds, it leads. So they have to create an event to get butts in seats, like to increase attendance that weekend, because people are going to come out in support of this, but when there's a threat.
Yeah.
That's what we've devolved into when it comes to these churches. All right, we gotta
Take us out.
I gotta get out of here, man. I gotta get out of here.
Next week, we'll be playing the body-worn camera footage from Deputy Ballman from the Canfield shooting back in June of 2025. It should be good to review the first 20 minutes at least. Get your guys' opinion. He is up for the Medal of Honor, along with Eric Brock, Deputy Brock, and Deputy Orr. We're going to let you guys see what those deputies that first arrived on scene were facing, what their actions were accordingly. Hopefully between now and then, we'll also have some more information to share with you on the behind the scenes with the manipulation of Bruce Matari and certain Hayden residents trying to undermine the city of Hayden. We're going to have a jam-packed week next week, so we appreciate you guys being here with us tonight. Maybe if we're really motivated, we'll go ahead and recut episode or part 2 of the Show Your Proof.
Yeah, we're going to do that.
In the meantime,
Probably a Jezebel spirit.
probably. It's possessed. Pray for my buddy Jim Harbin. Jim had a rough weekend. Be praying for him. Pray for Ann Blatt as well. Pray for all those that are going through difficult times. Pray for your country. Pray for courage and discernment. See you guys next week.
Thanks for joining us tonight on Liberty Without Compromise, the live stream broadcast. Remember to visit our website. That's at libertywithoutcompromise.com. You can view past episodes there, watch some of our exclusive reports. There's some juicy ones there on the website, libertywithoutcompromise.com. For our podcast, you can listen and subscribe wherever you get your shows. For some good cigars, you can go to, what is it? Stella Stogies in Spirit Lake on Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Idaho Sheriff. We get a lot of viewership there on YouTube during the live stream. That's a good one. Get a lot of viewership over on X under Dan's account on X, and that is also at The Idaho Sheriff. Subscribe to those 2 channels, and then also subscribe or like and follow the Facebook page at The Idaho Sheriff, and then also Liberty Without Compromise. It seems like there was something else I was going to say. You know what? I think it was this.
Browns, that's from gluten. See my face is browns, that's from gluten.
I couldn't help it. So I guess we'll see next week, maybe if not a little bit before, for that Show Your Proof. Show Your Proof Challenge Exposed Part 2. You don't even know what to do with me anymore.
Oh, I know. I absolutely know what to do with you.
Okay.
Cheers.